What if I told you that one of the greatest detective stories ever written is also one of the scariest? A family cursed for generations, a lonely mansion sitting on the edge of the wild, misty moors, and a terrifying legend, a gigantic, ghostly hound with eyes that glow in the night, said to hunt down anyone who dares to carry the Baskerville name. This isn't just a campfire story. This is The Hound of the Baskervilles, written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle in 1902. And it isn't just another Sherlock Holmes mystery. It's the most famous Holmes story of all time. Why? Because it blends detective work with gothic horror, superstition, and spine-chilling suspense. Imagine yourself walking across an endless stretch of moorland. Fog wraps around you. The ground beneath your feet shifts. Dangerous bogs that can swallow a man whole. And then, in the distance, you hear it. A low, echoing howl that chills your blood. Is it just a dog? Or is it something far more sinister? This is the world of the Hound of the Baskervilles, a place where reason battles fear, where myth collides with logic, and where Sherlock Holmes faces one of his most haunting cases. The Baskerville family carried with it a dark tale, passed down for generations. Centuries ago, during the English Civil War, one of the Baskerville ancestors, Hugo Baskerville, was said to be a cruel and violent man. One night, after committing a terrible crime, he was found dead on the moor. His throat had been torn out, and nearby, people swore they saw a monstrous hound, larger than any earthly dog, its eyes glowing with fire. From that night on, locals whispered that the Baskervilles were cursed, and whenever tragedy struck the family, the legend of the hound was blamed. Fast forward to the late 1800s. Sir Charles Baskerville, the most recent head of the family, is found dead on the grounds of Baskerville Hall. The official cause? Heart failure. But the details are far stranger. His face frozen in terror, and just a few feet away, the footprints of a massive hound, clear as day. Enter Dr. James Mortimer, a friend of the late Sir Charles. He doesn't believe this is just a natural death. And with the Baskerville heir, Sir Henry, arriving from Canada to inherit the estate, Mortimer is terrified that the curse is about to claim another victim. So, he turns to the one man who might uncover the truth, Sherlock Holmes. Along with his loyal friend, Dr. Watson, Holmes begins to unravel the mystery. Is the hound real? A supernatural beast roaming the moors? Or is something far more human hiding behind the legend? That's the stage. A cursed family, a haunted estate, and a detective who doesn't believe in ghosts, stepping into one of the most chilling cases of his career. The story really begins in London, at 221 B. Baker Street. One quiet morning, Dr. James Mortimer arrives at Sherlock Holmes's door. He's not a man easily shaken, but this time he's carrying both fear and urgency. Mortimer explains what happened to Sir Charles Baskerville, his death on the moor, the strange expression of terror frozen on his face, and most disturbing of all, the footprints of a gigantic hound found near the body. At first, it sounds like nothing more than an old family superstition. But as Mortimer lays out the history of the Baskerville curse, even the great Sherlock Holmes listens with a trace of curiosity. Holmes doesn't believe in ghosts or demons, but he knows one thing: fear itself can be deadly. Then comes the twist. A new heir to the Baskerville estate, Sir Henry Baskerville, is on his way from Canada. He's young, energetic, and completely unaware of the danger that might be waiting for him on the moors. Mortimer is convinced that if the curse is real, or if someone is using it to cover up a crime, Sir Henry will be the next target. Holmes asks sharp questions, testing Mortimer's story. Was anyone with Sir Charles when he died? Who benefits from his death? Why was Sir Charles so fearful in the days before he passed? Every answer only deepens the puzzle. Finally, Mortimer begs Holmes, "Protect Sir Henry. Uncover the truth before the Hound, or whatever it is, strikes again." Holmes agrees to take the case, but already he senses something strange. If this is simply superstition, why do the facts point toward murder? And who would gain from the fall of the Baskerville line? The mystery is no longer just a legend. It's real, and it's waiting for them on the moors of Devonshire. Not long after, Sir Henry Baskerville himself arrives in London. At first glance, he doesn't look like someone cursed by a family legend. He's confident, full of energy, and excited to claim his inheritance. But almost immediately, strange things begin to happen. On his very first day in the city, Sir Henry receives an anonymous letter. The message is chilling. "Stay away from the moor if you value your life." Someone clearly wants to frighten him off. But who? Even stranger, one of Sir Henry's brand new boots suddenly disappears from his hotel. It seems like a small detail, just a missing shoe. But in detective stories, small details often matter most. And Holmes doesn't forget it. Holmes starts to notice something else. They're being followed. A mysterious man in a cab seems to be watching every move Sir Henry makes. The case that once sounded like an old ghost story now feels like something far more human and far more dangerous. Holmes knows Sir Henry can't be left unprotected. But here's the twist. Instead of going to Baskerville Hall himself, he decides to send Dr. Watson along with Sir Henry and Dr. Mortimer. Holmes claims he'll stay in London to continue other investigations. For Watson, it's a test. Alone on the foggy moors, surrounded by shadows, he must observe, report, and protect Sir Henry while Holmes works in the background. And so, with that decision, the real journey begins. From the busy streets of London to the desolate Devonshire moors, Watson and Sir Henry set off toward Baskerville Hall, carrying with them a curse, a mystery, and the watchful eyes of something, human or not, waiting for them in the fog. When Watson and Sir Henry arrive at Baskerville Hall, the atmosphere is chilling from the very start. The mansion itself is massive, old, and surrounded by endless stretches of moorland. At night, the halls echo with silence. Outside, the winds sweep across the moors, carrying sounds that don't always feel natural. The landscape is haunting. The moors are vast, empty, and dangerous. Patches of thick fog can roll in without warning, making it impossible to see even a few feet ahead. There are bogs, deep, hidden swamps that can swallow a person whole. And always, at the back of everyone's mind, is the legend of the Hound, said to prowl these very lands. Watson writes letters back to Holmes, describing everything he observes. And there is plenty to notice. The neighbors are peculiar, each one suspicious in their own way. There's Mr. Stapleton, a naturalist who knows the moors better than anyone else. He's friendly on the surface, but there's something unsettling about how he speaks of the Hound. Then there's his sister, Beryl Stapleton, who secretly warns Watson to take Sir Henry away before it's too late. Watson also learns of an escaped convict hiding somewhere on the moor, a violent man who broke free from prison. The locals whisper about him, adding another layer of fear to the already dangerous landscape. And then come the sounds. More than once, Watson hears a chilling noise drifting across the moors, a long, low howl echoing in the fog. Locals insist it's the ghostly Hound of the Baskervilles. Watson doesn't want to believe in such things. But alone at night, even he begins to wonder. The more time he spends there, the heavier the curse feels. Something is wrong on the moors. Too many secrets, too many warnings, and a shadow that always seems just out of sight. And through it all, Watson can't shake the feeling that they are being watched. As days pass, Watson becomes more unsettled. The moors, the strange neighbors, the haunting cries at night, it all feels like a trap closing in. And yet, every clue seems to point in a different direction. Watson notices that Sir Henry is growing closer to Beryl Stapleton, the beautiful but nervous sister. She tries to warn him away, but her brother, Mr. Stapleton, grows furious at the thought. His anger feels out of proportion, and Watson begins to wonder why the Stapletons are so invested in Sir Henry's fate. Then the escaped convict makes the story even darker. Watson learns that the man has been hiding on the moor for weeks, surviving in secret. Could he have been the one following Sir Henry in London? Could he even be behind Sir Charles's death? But the most chilling moment comes one foggy night, when Watson hears it again. That dreadful sound, the howl of a massive hound rolling across the moor. He describes it as unearthly, a cry so haunting it shakes him to his core. Even a man of science like Watson begins to doubt himself. Could there really be something supernatural stalking them? Yet the clues don't all fit. Someone has been watching the hall, and Watson spots a shadowy figure moving among the rocks. Not the convict this time. Someone else. Someone hiding deliberately. Piece by piece, Watson's investigation grows more complex. It's no longer just about a curse or a legend. It feels like human hands are shaping events, using the fear of the Hound to cover their tracks. But how? And why? At this point, Watson admits in his letters to Holmes that the case is slipping beyond his grasp. The danger is real, the tension is unbearable, and without Holmes by his side, the mystery of the Baskerville curse feels more unsolvable than ever. Just when Watson begins to feel overwhelmed, the greatest twist of all is revealed. Sherlock Holmes has been on the moor the entire time. He never stayed in London as he claimed. Quietly, secretly, he's been watching everything, gathering evidence, letting Watson's reports feed the investigation while he worked in the shadows. Holmes explains that he wanted the enemy to believe he wasn't involved, hoping the culprit would grow bold enough to make a mistake. And now, with enough clues in place, Holmes is ready to expose the truth. The so-called ghostly Hound, not a supernatural creature at all. Holmes discovers that it's a very real dog, massive, terrifying, but made even more horrifying by human hands. Someone has been covering the animal with phosphorus, a glowing chemical that makes it appear ghostly in the dark. That's why locals swore its eyes and body seemed to shine with an unearthly fire. And who was behind it all? The seemingly harmless neighbor, Mr. Stapleton. Holmes reveals Stapleton's true identity. He is actually a distant relative of the Baskerville family, someone with a hidden claim to the estate. If Sir Henry were to die, Stapleton would become the next heir. His plan was simple and ruthless. Use the old family legend to drive Sir Charles to his death, and then set the same trap for Sir Henry. Even the small clues begin to make sense. The missing boot? Stapleton needed Sir Henry's scent to set the Hound on him. The strange warnings? They came from Beryl Stapleton, who, terrified of her brother's cruelty, tried to save Sir Henry without exposing herself. Piece by piece, the puzzle comes together. What looked like a supernatural curse was, in truth, a carefully constructed crime, one designed to hide behind fear and superstition. Holmes now has everything he needs. The only question left is whether they can stop Stapleton before the Hound strikes again. So what makes the Hound of the Baskervilles more than just a detective story? Why does it still feel powerful more than a century later? First, it's the theme of fear. Conan Doyle shows us that fear can be just as deadly as any weapon. Sir Charles wasn't killed by claws alone. He was killed by terror. The legend of the Hound had lived in his mind for so long that it made him vulnerable. In the end, the human mind's reaction to fear is as dangerous as the Hound itself. Second, it's about science versus superstition. The villagers believed in a ghostly beast. Watson, as a man of reason, tried to explain it away, but only Holmes, with his razor-sharp logic, could see through both sides to uncover the truth. Doyle reminds us that the world often hides behind myths and fears, but reason and observation can cut through the darkness. And then, there's justice. Stapleton thought he could hide behind legend, but in the end, greed and cruelty exposed him. The Hound of the Baskervilles warns us that evil often wears a mask, whether it's the mask of family, of friendship, or of myth. But truth has a way of tearing those masks off. As for its legacy, this story cemented Sherlock Holmes as more than a detective. He became a cultural icon, the symbol of intellect triumphing over superstition. To this day, the image of a glowing hound prowling the foggy moors remains one of the most chilling scenes in mystery literature. It's not just a detective case, it's gothic horror, folklore, and human psychology all wrapped into one. And that's why, even now, The Hound of the Baskervilles is remembered as not just one of Conan Doyle's greatest works, but one of the greatest mysteries ever written. And that brings us to the end of The Hound of the Baskervilles. What started as an old family curse and a terrifying howl across the moors turned out to be something far more human: greed, deception, and a cold-blooded plan for murder. But maybe that's what makes the story so unforgettable. It blurs the line between superstition and reality. Was it really a monster, or just our own fears made flesh? Doyle knew that what we imagine in the dark can be more frightening than anything real, and he used that to keep readers turning pages over 100 years ago. Even today, the story still works. The foggy moors, the lonely mansion, the glowing hound, they stick in your imagination. And Holmes himself remains timeless, calm, brilliant, and able to see the truth when everyone else is blinded by fear. So the next time you hear a story that feels too strange to be true, ask yourself, are you looking at a ghost or just a very clever disguise? Because, as Holmes himself once said, the world is full of obvious things which nobody by any chance ever observes. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.